Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So you're in my kitchen today. Welcome. So today we're going to talk about my vegan journey, and I'm also going to do a cooking demonstration of one of my favorite vegetable soups. So first I wanted to talk about why I became vegan. So I've been vegan since January of 2019, and so that's been a year and a half. And so this came about because like so many, I've also struggled with diets and I've went back and forth. But I really think about this as a lifestyle change. And I've even corrected people when they say, "Oh, Christy, are you still on a vegan diet?" I'm like, no, this is a lifestyle change for me. So that's how I have approached this. And this didn't just come about overnight for me. I wasn't on the vegan train, it didn't really appeal to me. But how I came about it is in my PhD research. So I do work around indigenous education and history of education. So I specifically look at how education and public schools has affected indigenous communities. So that's what I focus on. And in that, and in early in my PhD career or my PhD studies, I started learning about decolonizing theory. And I'll put some resources down in the comments just to give you kind of an overview and some of the things that I've read early on. So if we think about decolonizing, we think about that first, if we think about the root of the word, so de means to take away, to break down. And other words you can kind of think about are deconstruction, demolition. So those are kind of words to kind of think about. So with decolonizing, what we're doing is thinking about the time before our country was colonized. The United States is a colonized country. And I told you all we were going to have real talk. So there will be real talk. And this is part of that, in that I'm going to talk about real history. So the reality is our country, the United States, was colonized. And there were people here before this, what I call the discovery myth of Columbus. There were people here, there were indigenous communities here for thousands of years prior to that contact that we now know of as Columbus and the discovery myth. And I say myth because we know that there were people here before, and we also know the history that Columbus didn't really know where he was. So let's just be honest with that history. So, getting back to decolonizing. So, when I decided to be vegan, I first said it as I'm decolonizing my food source. And why I said that is because so much of our food source has been modified, we have an overproduction of certain things, and we're not treating the land and animals and the air as we should. And indigenous communities, that's important. In a kind of a Western way of thinking, we think of humans as dominant, as above everything. But in an indigenous knowledge system, in an indigenous approach, which I also study and read and learn about, we think about all of these things are connected. So as I thought about my eating habits and my purchasing habits, my food habits, I said I'm going to decolonize my food source. And for me, the easiest way to say that is I'm vegan or I'm plant-based. So that's how I came about to becoming vegan. And I'll put a couple things about decolonizing in the description of the video, so in case you want to do some reading. But that's really how I came to it. And I enjoy being vegan because it makes me more intentional about what I'm putting into my body. It makes me more intentional about when I'm traveling and I need snacks. It makes me more intentional about the things that I'm buying. I look at the back of products now. I did that before, but I was looking more at ingredients, sugar, fat, all of those things that a lot of diets tell us to do. But I look at it just to see, are there real ingredients in there? And so not everything I buy has that little V for vegan, but I look at it and I look at the back, and because there's conversations in what makes something vegan certified, and that's a larger conversation. But to me, that's not the biggest important. That makes it easier for me when I'm shopping. But I look at the ingredients, and if I know all of the ingredients and I can pronounce all of them, then that's a product that I'm gonna buy. And I know that there's no animal byproducts in in that product. So it makes me very much more intentional. When I if only fast food is available, it makes me more intentional. There's a variety of places that have vegan options or even vegetarian options. So that's the other thing I'll talk about. Sometimes when I first started, I said I'm vegan-ish, and that's because I was transitioning, and also I really like desserts. So, and pastries and donuts and things like that. I don't eat them all the time, but if I want to have one, like one of my favorite vegan chefs will say, that's my business. Tabitha Brown, I love her. Go follow her. I will link her below. If you're not on that Tabitha Brown train, I will put that in the comments for you. But as she says, that's my business. So for me, if I choose to have something, that is my business. That is what I choose to have, what I choose to put in my body. So there are times where I will decide to be vegetarian, for example, and I call it veganish just for fun. I have a friend of mine, Donna, and you'll probably hear me mention her a couple of times because I just love her to death. But she cooks this great Alfredo, and it had mushrooms in it, and I was like, I'm gonna have some of that because she knows I don't eat animal byproducts, but for the vegetarian, she'll say, Christy, I made this, would you like some? And then I have the choice if I say yes. And we know Alfredo has Parmesan. So that is something that I can choose in my lifestyle, in my decisions that I'm making about things that I put in my body. So I do I work really hard not to have any meat products. So I may say I'm veganish, but I work really hard not to have any meat byproducts, any animal byproducts, but then also any meat items. So again, if I'm saying veganish, I am going to have some animal byproducts if I have eggs and butter, if I decide to have a donut, for example. But I do really try not to have meat in my diet. So a couple things that I don't do on my plant-based /vegan/veganish journey is I don't shame other people. So early on when I decided to become vegan or plant-based, I decided that this was something that I wanted to do because I don't have a sustainable way to get meat right now. It's very mass produced in the area that I'm in. Animals are not treated well. And so I decided until I can be in a place where I can get fresh eggs all the time if I decide to, I can get fresh butter, I can get fresh meat products, fresh in that they're sustainable, animals are treated well, and they're organic. So there's not a lot of pesticides and things like that. That's another reason that this is an intentional journey for me, is that we don't have fake stuff in our food, essentially. So this is really an intentional lifestyle change for me as I look to where my food is coming from. What are the sources that my food is coming from? The other thing is I am not one of those people who are like, oh my gosh, everything with animals or animal byproducts is bad. I'm not shaming people. And you know why? Because indigenous communities have been resourceful and using things from the land and using animals or growing animals, and they treat the animals well. They treat the animals like they're supposed to be treated. A variety of indigenous communities, if they're using if they have killed an animal, for example, they're praying over that animal, and then they're using all the different parts of that animal. It's not just for consumption, which is what our food source currently is in a lot of ways because it's mass produced. So I don't shame people who decide to eat meat or who decide to do byproducts. And I don't do that because, first of all, that's not, I wanted to back up because I do have a nice shirt on with decolonizing on it. I don't shame folks because I know from the indigenous perspective that people do treat animals with respect, and it is that we're all interconnected. Land, sea, and earth. So we're all connected, and that includes animals, that includes humans, and things like that. And respecting those and holding them as sacred. So that is what I don't do the shaming. So the other thing I'll talk about before we get to cooking. So I also I'm trying, when I first started, I didn't do this as much, but I'm also trying to do cruelty-free and vegan products now. So all of currently my shampoo, my conditioner, my leave-in conditioner, that I use, I've gotten some, items from Too Faced. They have a vegan line. And so I'm slowly building that. I haven't gotten into my clothes are vegan and things like that. That's just not something that I'm able to sustain right now because I can't afford that at this time. I don't know that that would be something I would be able to afford in the future, but for now, I'm just working to my healthcare products, and then, like I said, my hair products are vegan. So those are slow steps that I'm working to make as I am on this vegan journey. So that was the reason I became vegan, to decolonize my food source and to be more intentional about the things that I'm putting into my body. So next I want to talk about cooking and why I'm enjoying it. Cooking is part of me getting back to having joy in my life. When I first got my job in my 20s, my first full-time job, what I decided during that time, and remember I'm 39, hopefully you've seen my intro video, I'll pop it in the comments if you haven't, but hopefully you have seen that. Also, I want to say if you all have any tips or tricks that if you're vegan, conversations, or if there's things you're thinking about doing, if you're thinking about becoming vegan, plant-based, or vegetarian, talk about that in the comments. I'd love to hear kind of your journey, if you're starting it, if you've been doing it for a while, any questions that you have. So please pop those in the comments. Hopefully you've already subscribed to my channel and hit those notifications. But again, let's have some conversation down in the comments. So yes, getting back to, so in my first full-time job, I decided that I was going to cook a new recipe every week. So, and I just did searches about different things that I was interested in. I've always been a person who eats a lot of chicken prior to becoming vegan. I ate a lot of chicken. I didn't really eat a lot of beef and pork. I had taken pork out of my, because of the salt content, I had taken it out in college, and didn't eat a lot of it. So I just tried different things, whether it was all vegetables or probably a lot of chicken dishes. But I said I was going to do one new recipe every week. And I did that. And I enjoyed doing that. And honestly, in my 20s, I was enjoying cooking. I would do that. I wasn't as busy because I was working full time. I wasn't back in school. But it really shifted for me when I went back to school in my 30s. My program was very busy. I was working. I was taking 12 to 14 graduate credit hours, which is a lot. And I mean, some of my classmates were taking 15 to 16 hours. And this was a 3-year master's program. And remember, I went back to school when I was 32. I don't think I've told the age, but when I was 32, after working 6 years, I decided to go back to school for a second master. So during that time, it was just busy for me. I cooked when I first started and I moved to Atlanta because that's where I did my degree. I went out to eat a lot in the first year because I was meeting people, and that's just how we hung out. We go get margaritas. We debrief after the week, so maybe Friday, Saturday. I ate out a lot, but then I was also a student pastor. I was in classes, and then I had gotten another job in the School of Nursing, so I was super busy. And rarely did I eat a lot. There was a lot of Starbucks in the morning for breakfast when I went to class. But it really just derailed me enjoying cooking because I felt like I didn't have time for it. I did a little bit when I first started, but as I got along in my program, I didn't do as much. So really the last 6 months, when I talk about adding joy back into my life, it's really been in the last 6 months that I've been cooking again. And I've just started baking again pretty much since quarantine because I hadn't really made time for it before. And I love baking. I had forgot how much I love baking. So I've been making, I really like making, I made vegan banana bread, and I'll have to do a video for you later on for that. I make pancakes. I make a vegan pancake. And a lot of my recipes, I am not a recipe creator, so I do want to be upfront with that. But a lot of mine come from Pinterest, and I will link my Pinterest down in the comments or in the description of this video. I have a board, it's called vegan life or hashtag vegan life, something like living this vegan life, I think is the name of it. But I'll link that in the comments. That's where I get most of my recipes. So these aren't like ones that I've created. I want to be upfront with that. I also have this lovely book that I bought. And again, I'll link this down below. This is it's like a sweet potato soul. So a lot of her ingredients are made with, or a lot of her recipes are made with sweet potatoes. And the southern style. She's originally from Georgia. And then my lovely friend Donna just bought me this one. And again, I'll link these two down below. And then I have a couple more that my friend gave me as she was cleaning out her books and cookbooks. So I will link those four. I'll have four that I put below for you. Honestly, I have these books, but I haven't cooked out of them. Like I said, I actually use Instagram and I use Pinterest for my recipes. But I do have these, and I hope to pull out some recipes soon, and hopefully I will share those with you all. Now for a cooking demonstration, I believe in hands-on learning, so I'm going to actually have you come around here so that you can cook with me. Alright, so there is a pandemic going on, and I wouldn't normally let people stand this close to me, but because I trust you and that we're getting to know each other and hopefully you're going to help me with this cooking, I'm going to let you get close. So, welcome. So, someone already prepped our vegetables for us over here. I live alone. So, that was very nice of them. So, we're going to start with the onions because I like to go ahead and have the onions in the water cooking on the pot first. So then it just starts getting the flavor in there. So we're just going to start with those. And I should say, I am not a professional chef. I'm not going to give you cutting techniques. My technique is that making sure my fingers don't get cut off. So that is my technique. There's plenty of videos that you could watch for that. I've kind of gotten better over the years, but again, just as long as my fingers don't get cut off, we're good to go. So I like to cut big chunks in my onion, so I just slice and then cut in half. And I've actually already cut the onion in half. So I am gonna stick with just this amount and see. I think I'll be happy with that. So I'm actually going to take you all over to the stove for once, for two reasons. I want you to see the spices that I'm going to go ahead and put into the water for the vegetable soup. And again, this is not a soup that I created. I will put the link in the comments. The other reason is I want you all to see my lovely new drip trays that I bought. So I have lived in this apartment for 3 years. And I thought I owned a Kenmore stove, and so I had to go back twice for these. And I didn't really even know they were called drip trays, but now you know. So I want to show you my stove for a variety of reasons. So let's go over there. Alright, so welcome. I'm going to go ahead and drop these onions in here. Probably just made a mess, but that's okay. So, these are the spices that I'm going to be putting into here. I just went ahead and put them in here. I'm from the South, so I just want you to know that we don't really do, this was a tablespoon or this was a teaspoon. So I did go ahead and drop those in the pot, in there. And I want to say, not every Southern person says I'm not going to use measuring things, but we just kind of, like I said, let the spirit hit us as we go along. So this is your soup. Anytime you're cooking, you're making it what you want to make it. So just keep that in mind. So I am going to talk through what I put in here. So I did start off with, I like to reuse jars. So I used 5 pickle jar fulls of water. So it's about halfway full, if you can tell in there. And so, but hopefully that helps, as I know we're working through this together. So hopefully that will help. So I did add all-purpose seasoning. I also added sea salt, garlic salt, ground peppercorn, and this is actually from my co-op. In bulk, I bought it at our co-op. I just reused the Trader Joe's, but it is rainbow peppercorn. And I have this onion powder. So I've been working to level up. This was 95 cents at the grocery store, and I've been trying to level up on my spices. So, and I can tell the difference with higher quality spices, but if not, I mean, these are just as fine. I've been cooking with these for a while now. So when I first made this soup, I made it with vegetable soup, but we're not doing that today. We're actually going to use tomatoes, and I'll talk through kind of how I decided on that. And then I also want you to take a peek back there. Told you I thought I had a Kenmore, and what does that say back there on the type of stove that I have? So yes, welcome to my stove, and we're going to go back and finish up the other vegetables now. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and finish up the other vegetables. I did go ahead and cut up the carrots. I didn't want to get anybody nervous about my cutting skills, and I like to take my time on those. So you will notice I've actually done these in pretty big chunks. So my friend Donna actually made some soup for me, some Lebanese soup, and I like that she cut up the chunks bigger, the vegetable chunks bigger. So that's what I've started doing with my own vegetables as well. And like she said, she gave me that advice, and she said that it helps it not to, the vegetables not to overcook. So I've started cutting my vegetables in larger chunks. You'll see that I put my onion in my pickle jar so I can use that later in another recipe or when I'm cooking later. The carrot is just because I had 3 carrots. I had prepped 3 carrots, and I'm only going to use 2. And so this one I'll just snack on later on. So I have here, and I do want to show you the difference here. So I tried these. This is a yam. And so if you're like me from the South, or you just like yams or sweet potatoes, I don't really call them yams, but if you like sweet potatoes, you're used to them being an orange color. But these, I actually looked when I got these at the co-op the second time. Actually, this is my 3rd time buying them, and I didn't see the name of them. So, but I really like the flavor of it. It still tastes like a sweet potato, but it's just it's a different kind of flavor that I'm not able to describe, but I am going to use that. So that is a sweet potato. So this uses onion, carrots, sweet potato, regular potatoes, and I like cabbage, so I'm adding cabbage to my vegetable soup. Now, when I use the vegetable broth, I actually added kale to my salad, but since kale to my soup, I'm sorry. I actually added kale to the vegetable soup, but since I'm not using the vegetable soup, I'm using a tomato base, which we'll talk about when we go back over to the stove. I am not going to use kale for this one. So if you make the vegetable broth one, you can add kale if you like kale. I'm a fan of kale. So we're just going to go ahead and chop these up. Again, this is the sweet potato, and I'm going to just do it in quarters, and then again, larger chunks. The bowl makes it easier, as you saw with the onions when we take it over to the stove. Now, one trick with sweet potatoes, and I don't do this with regular potatoes. I was thinking, I don't really know why I don't do that with the regular potatoes. But with sweet potatoes, I actually cook these prior to making my soup. I baked these yesterday. I baked them in 350 degrees. Mine took 45 minutes because my stove, the temperature takes more time to kind of get into the potatoes. And I like doing that with the sweet potato because it makes it easier with this for the skin to come off. So that's why I decided to do that. Actually, I could peel it, as you can see, but I already like the other one, so it just comes off really easy like that. Like that, as Tabitha Brown would say. So it just makes it really easy. And again, I don't do this for my other potatoes, just the regular russet potatoes, but I do it for my sweet potatoes. So, and these will actually go in later because they're pretty well cooked. So I put these in probably about with 10 more minutes to go, because then the flavor gets marinated with the other things in the pot. But overall, these don't go in from the very beginning because they're already partially cooked. So and one thing I'll say about my knife. So as I was thinking about, my trying to get back to the joy of cooking, I invested in knives. I invested in a nicer set of pots. So that was part of me getting back to that joy of cooking. I invested in myself and in my cooking. And again, that intentionality of what I'm putting in my body is important to me. So I said I'm going to invest in my utensils I use to cook. Okay, and then we're going to do some cabbage. I love cabbage. I don't know how you all feel. This is a little loud. Okay, so we have our cabbage. I'm just going to finish these up, and then we'll take it over to the stove, and we'll talk about the heat setting and put in our tomatoes. So see you over there. Hello, hello. So I cut up the rest of the cabbage. I used some for the soup, and then I put the rest in my Good Vibes bowl that you see here. And I'll probably use the rest for either some more soup or some ramen, because I really like cabbage in my ramen. And I hope you all are enjoying this cooking demonstration and this video about why I became vegan. Please drop some comments, and I hope you've subscribed already. Let me know what other things you might like to see me cook, and get ready for the rest of the video. We got some more soup to prepare. Alright, so while you were over there watching TV, I went ahead and cut up the cabbage. So I'm just going to add that in. One thing I forgot to say earlier is that you want to start with your potatoes and your carrots first, because those take longer to cook. I usually cook them about 20 minutes, 25, 30 minutes. And then I add the cabbage, and then I add the potatoes after that. Again, because the sweet potatoes are what I add, because those have already cooked. So again, put your onions in first, because that starts getting your water with the flavor and your seasoning. And then you plug in your carrots and your potatoes. And keep in mind, whenever you're cooking, and my mom taught me this years ago, potatoes, when they're cooking, they let out water, because they're made up of, I don't know how much percent of water, but they extract water when they're cooking. So anytime you're cooking, you can make sure that that's important, particularly if you're cooking in a crock pot. I kind of think about that. If I'm cooking potatoes, I don't have to use as much water. So again, potatoes, carrots first, along with your onions, and then the cabbage. And for this, again, I'm not using the vegetable soup. This one I'm actually going to use tomatoes. I'm using fire roasted tomatoes that I'm going to add to the soup. And the reason I did this, so at my co-op, I kind of did a copycat, because they have this healing cabbage soup that they make, and it's so delicious. One, I like cabbage, as I've discussed before. But when I was making this soup a couple weeks ago, I didn't have vegetable broth. I had forgot to buy some at the store. And I said, well, let me try it with my veggies, but with tomatoes, and it worked out. So, and it really tastes. So it's not an exact copycat, but it does taste very similar. And I like the flavors all together. So I'm going to go ahead and let this simmer, and then I'll be adding in the potatoes later. So the next time you see this soup, it will be at the end when it's ready. And again, most of this is going to take probably 40-45 minutes total, because you're going to let all of these initial items, like the early ones, go for about 30 minutes. And then add the cabbage, and then add those sweet potatoes at the end, and let it all come together. And I'll taste test. That's one thing you should know about me, is I'm like world's best taste tester. I'm always doing that. Even when it comes to like my mom's cooking and other people, I like to taste test. So I'll be tasting just to see if it's enough spices. And again, that's why I say it's important for you all to taste your food as you go along, because you want to do that, because particularly if you're feeding somebody else or even yourself, as you're cooking for yourself. Just taste it to see if it's good. So, oh, hello. This is actually me prior to filming. I thought this would be good B-roll. And you will see me launching my channel in just a moment. This was before I started filming this third video I actually launched. So check out my first video if you haven't already. And here is the finished product. I hope you enjoy this cooking with me. I hope you will subscribe to my channel and hit those notifications and come back next week. We're going to talk about going back to school in your 30s. I look forward to seeing you all. And I almost burnt my finger trying to get this photo for you all. Enjoy. See you all next time.